Hello and welcome to the June BPDA board meeting. The Open Public Meeting Law requires that I notify that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications at Xfinity Channel 24, RCN Channel 13, and Verizon Fios Channel 1962. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/cable. This is the June BPDA board meeting, which is being held virtually to ensure the safety of the public, staff members, and the BPDA board members during the COVID-19 situation. I will now take roll call of the board members. Ms. Downs.
Present.
Mr. Monahan.
Present.
Dr. Landmark.
Present.
Mr. Miller.
Present.
Great, thank you. Before we begin the formal part of the agenda, I'd like to take a moment just to pause and recognize that we are living through multiple pandemics right now, one being the COVID-19 virus, the other being the virus of racism, which has been spreading throughout our systems and institutions for centuries. As a Latinx woman of color and of this board, I believe it is important not to stay silent and explicitly say that Black Lives Matter. I think it's important for us to do the work and to make time to listen, learn, and take action to help us evolve into a better society. The mission of this agency is to partner with communities to plan for Boston's future while respecting its past, all with the goal of shaping a more prosperous, resilient, and vibrant city for all. And this includes recognizing the intersection of race in the work that we do. I'd like to thank the board, agency leadership, and staff for your continued commitment to achieving our mission during this difficult and very painful time. And again, just wanted to pause and open the floor to the board if there was anything that you'd like to add.
I would just say that this is a transformative moment for the entire nation. It's a time when there is a discussion of race that has never really taken place at the depth that it is taking place now. And that those of us who have the privilege to serve on a board such as this also have the responsibility to hold ourselves accountable for how our specific actions may further the cause of racial and social equity within the country. And I think that there will be some announcements made over the course of this meeting that will speak to that and to the commitment of this board to assure equity for all.
Thank you.
I'd like to just make a quick statement. Also, thank you, Ted and Priscilla. You know, I feel compelled by this moment in history to confront with more urgency the racism that resides in my own mind. You know, racist ideas and language and assumptions, which I've absorbed over my entire life and which we have all absorbed wherever we grew up, and which affect how I interact with others and how we all interact with each other. And I feel compelled to better understand myself, to accept that I am uninformed, to learn and listen, and to work with other people wherever I am to open up and be vulnerable and be uncomfortable in order to change for the better. And as a board member of the BPDA,
13,656 meals today.
Gotcha.
I recommit to working with our board, with Ted, Priscilla, Mike, and Brian, and with Director Golden and Executive Secretary Polhemus, and all of our staff to fight structural racism and to promote anti-racist policies and to plan and build an equitable Boston for all. You know, all means all, as Counselor Julia Mejia always says. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Okay. Well, thank you for your input and just making time and to share. So we'll now begin the first, the EDIC agenda. And the first item on the agenda is request authorization for the approval of the minutes of the May 14th, 2020. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I will now take roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda, request authorization to extend the term of the ground lease with Coastal Cement Corporation for the use of land and building located at 36 Dry Dock Avenue within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dennis. Dennis, I believe you're on mute.
Can you hear me now? Thank you, Madam Chair. Coastal Cement Corporation has been a tenant in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park since 1985. You may recognize the giant forced cement silos on the easternmost section of the park. That's the property that I'm referencing. The cement is manufactured in Portland, Maine, and it is barged into Boston via barge and loaded into the silos. It is a textbook 100% maritime dependent use. The initial 1985 lease was scheduled to expire in 2010 with several 5-year option terms. The fixed rent during each of the option terms is not predetermined, and it's negotiated at that time to ensure that it accurately reflects the market value for this unique asset. The current option term extension was scheduled to commence February 2020. However, in January 2020, the BPDA board voted to extend the deadline to exercise the option to June of 2020. The reason we requested that extension was that BPDA had been negotiating a 4-party agreement that, until finalized, precludes completing the negotiations with Coastal Cement. That agreement involves Massport, the Davis companies, BPDA, and Coastal Cement. Generally speaking, BPDA would recapture some land from Coastal Cement and in turn lease that to Massport. Massport will then sublease that land to the Davis companies, who will use it to support the repositioning of the Massport-owned 88 Black Falcon Avenue building, which is a 400,000 square foot office and warehouse building. Davis leases that building from Massport, and they plan to add an additional 300,000 square feet to that building. Given all of the moving parts in that particular 3-pronged transaction, we would like to get the negotiations with Massport finalized before turning our sole attention to Coastal Cement. Inasmuch as Davis companies, Massport, and BPDA are all commercial landlords in their own right, we collectively lost some traction while tending to the financial pressures of our own tenants due to the COVID-19 forced economic shutdown. We're asking for an extension of the deadline for Coastal to exercise the third 5-year option term until September 30th of 2020 in order to keep them in compliance with their lease. We are very confident that we will be bringing both of those proposed leases back to the board in advance of the September 30th deadline. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'll take a call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda. Request authorization to extend the term of the license agreement with the Boston Fire Department for the continued use of approximately 1,000 square feet of space on the third floor of 22 Dry Dock Avenue within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Maureen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be presenting this one.
That's fine. Okay.
The Boston Fire Department Employee Assistance Program has been a tenant at 22 Dry Dock Avenue since 2015. The Employee Assistance Program, or EAP, if you will, is a confidential program focusing on the wellness of Boston Fire Department employees and immediate family members. It provides assessment, referrals, supervisory and management consulting, brief treatment, advocacy, and crisis intervention. It also assists in the prevention, recognition, and treatment of drug and alcohol dependency. Due to the confidential nature of the service provided by EAP, a discrete location is preferred as opposed to being in the fire department headquarters, for example. The fire department approached BPDA in 2015 requesting to use the space at 22 Dry Dock Avenue as a private and secure location to meet with clients. The third floor suite we're talking about is about 1,000 square feet. It's wide open with carpeting and ample windows, however, it lacks central air conditioning. In 2015, BPDA board permitted the use of that space by EAP for a 5-year period, which will expire in June 30th of 2020. We're requesting that the term of the license be extended for an additional year through June 30th of 2021 at no charge to the Boston Fire Department. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Do we have any questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'll take roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, request authorization to enter into short-term license agreements for use of EDIC-owned properties for COVID-19 related relief and recovery efforts. Devin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. For the record, I'm Devin Quirk, Director of Real Estate. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to impact public health and economic activities across the entire globe. Locally, however, recent declining trends in the COVID-19 infection rate have warranted a cautious reopening of some aspects of our economy and daily lives. Mayor Walsh and Governor Baker have laid out plans for a phased reopening of our city and our Commonwealth. And an important aspect of these reopening plans is the careful structuring of public health policies to reduce possible virus transmission. This has led to increased emphasis on prioritizing outdoor open air interaction. To that end, Mayor Walsh recently announced that the licensing board for the city of Boston has taken steps to streamline the process for small businesses and restaurants to expand onto outdoor space, both on public and private property. As a major landowner in Boston, the BPDA is in a position to assist with the reopening of Boston's economy and the reactivation of public spaces by licensing outdoor activities on our real estate. For example, restaurants located on or near BPDA property may wish to temporarily expand their operating premise onto BPDA-owned real estate. The ability to quickly approve such licenses and requests when appropriate is vital to allowing business owners to make plans to reopen in a safe and viable way. In addition to restaurants, it's possible that other businesses and organizations may wish to use BPDA property on a temporary basis as Boston's economy reopens. The situation is fluid, and we expect organizations to reach out to us to utilize our property for COVID-19 recovery and relief efforts in the coming days and weeks. Therefore, in order to support Mayor Walsh's goal of a streamlined approval process for COVID-19 relief efforts, we are requesting general authorization to enter into licenses for the use of BPDA property for COVID-19 relief and recovery related efforts for up to 30 days. Our intent is to be able to immediately activate our property as needs arise between monthly BPDA board meetings, and we're very open to doing these licenses for longer than 30 days. Any license use seeking authorization beyond that initial 30-day limit would be presented at the next monthly BPDA board meeting for specific individual authorization. We expect that most licensees will seek a seasonal term for the license, and the third-day authorization is really meant to be a tool to allow them to open immediately between board meetings. So we hope by taking this action, we will be able to use our real estate to play a meaningful role in supporting the city's COVID-19 response efforts. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Devin. Do we have any questions from the board?
I have one question, Priscilla. Devin, I assume those people will indemnify us as far as anything happening on the property?
Absolutely. So, certificate of insurance indemnification will be critical to entering into any license. We'll have the same license terms that we would have for any use of our space. The changes is to approve it in advance.
I would just like to commend Devin this idea and encourage us to be as generous as possible with the terms of these licenses. You know, hopefully there'll be no fee licenses. As a small business owner, I know how extremely difficult it has been to access public support, and this is a really fantastic form of public support that we can offer to small businesses who desperately need it, especially restaurants. You know, this is 40% or more of the independent restaurants in Boston are facing closure, and it has, like I said, been very difficult to access public support. So this is really fantastic.
Thank you very much for your support, and I think we'll certainly take that feedback to heart. It's part of the mayor's response in opening all these public spaces to certainly support the small business owners who are struggling. We'll follow his lead on that.
Great, thank you. Any further questions from the board?
No.
Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'll take a roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you, Devin.
Thank you very much.
Item number 5, request authorization to enter into a 36-month lease agreement with Xerox Business Solutions Incorporated for 12 new pieces of equipment, Xerox multifunctioning printers, in an amount not to exceed $323,961.11. Michael.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. The BPDA is currently leasing printing and copying equipment from 2 different vendors. These lease agreements end June 30th, 2020. The agency is looking to consolidate these services into a single contract with a single vendor in order to maximize cost savings and to improve operations through standardization. In addition, the new lease will provide BPDA staff with the latest copying, printing, and scanning technologies. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we'll take roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
The chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 6, request authorization to approve the Economic Development and Industrial Corporation of Boston fiscal year 21 budget. Michelle.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, folks in the audience, hello. I am Michelle Goldberg, the Budget Director for the BPDA. Thank you for allowing me to address you all today. First, I wish to congratulate you, Madam Chair Rojas, first Latina to hold the position. You've always been a great supporter of our work, Madam Chair, and I'm thrilled to continue these efforts under your leadership. I am before you seeking approval for the FY21 operating and capital budget. These are extraordinary times, and we face great uncertainty, but there's a lot we know. We know that we have over $200 million of infrastructure needs with only 10% of the necessary funds currently in our capital reserve fund. We know we had a very strong FY20. As we close out the year, we are projecting a large surplus, mostly due to the fact that 2 large construction projects included in our FY20 budget did not end up beginning, and they are just now able to start. The finance department has been working around the clock to ensure that our bills are paid, contracts and leases are administered, and the budget gets prepared, all while working mostly from home during this historic pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has had an immediate impact on BPDA revenue and is still playing out. Our nation is having a deep conversation about racial justice and equity and the role the public sector plays in our lives and in the lives of people in our community. We also know that we're prepared to face these challenges. I am grateful for Director Golden's leadership during this time. Despite all the chaos, we come to you today with a prudent budget that acknowledges the challenges ahead while remaining committed to our values, responsibilities, and goals. The BPDA finance team has spent the better half of a decade focusing on reducing our long-term liabilities and investing in sustainable revenue-generating assets that has put us in a position to hopefully weather this economic climate. We are investigating every financial option out there, from bonding to loans, to ensure that we remain on track. I am grateful for everyone's active contribution across the agency. Well before these recent events had started to unfold, the BPDA was working on a robust collaborative effort to identify savings in our operating budget to reinvest in new innovations. We had no idea how helpful these early conversations were going to be. Relying on this annual practice has helped us create certainty and confidence through these busy times. I am going to hop through the presentation now. I will give you some of the traditional narratives around the process, the BPDA structure, and after that, we'll review some charts and talk about headcount, and then we'll wrap up with capital. And then from there, we'd be happy to take your questions. Before I move on, though, I do want to take a moment as well to speak to all the ways that the BPDA has listened and learned about racial justice and equity. Our participation in the Living Cities Inclusive Procurement Accelerator and leading the implementation of the BPDA's response to the Mayor's Executive Order for Equitable Procurement has been enriching our vendor diversity efforts, along with all the other great work across the agency. These are collaborative efforts, and we know we're moving in the right direction. We'll have a couple slides that'll highlight some of the areas that we're working on. The BPDA occupies an instrumental space when it comes to moving the needle on equity, and we put this at the center of our work. Included in this budget is a new position, and I'm excited to highlight that as well. We are currently in the EDIC portion of the agenda, so I will be presenting the BPDA from a combined point of view. At the conclusion of this presentation, the board will be asked to take a vote for the EDIC portion of the budget, and then at the very end, we'll gavel through the BPDA side. So with that, Joyce, we can flip to the first main slide here. And then the next slide, please. Thank you. So I always like to start to explain a bit of the process that led up to the numbers that you'll see. We've been focusing for a while on increasing organization and transparency through the detail in this budget. So you're going to see a couple new categories. We're finally able to start pulling parking out, which is really exciting to have that in the pie chart as its own category. And we've been working through the position management work. And so you'll see that we have a little bit more detail on vacancies as well. Next slide, please. We've been working on refining multi-year cash flows. This budget does also include fully funding our OPEB schedule. So like the city, we are currently remaining on track for our obligations in that area. And we're also continuing the practice of being partially self-insured on the EDIC side, which has certainly been helpful. Next slide, please. So like I had mentioned in the opening statement, we were meeting with departments quite heavily at the beginning of this process anyway. We've had some success linking human resources data to budget lines and starting to build out some more information there. And it's really is becoming a management tool for the departments as well, which is exciting. Next slide, please. So just quickly about the structure, because we kind of boil a lot down into one giant table, but it is it's important for folks to know if they just pick up this presentation or just joining us. We are a collection of entities, and the EDIC acts as a fiscal agent across all of these different entities. We had previously been referred to as the BRA, which is only one piece of who we are. So the BPDA, I think, really helps us speak about the collection of these entities in a more clear way. Next slide, please. And then the next one, thank you. So just quickly, trusty old pie chart, but as you can see, we've got our parking revenue category in here, which is nice because rental parking, very different types of business and different management strategy. So we've been working really hard in that space. Next slide, please. Our expense categories, I always like to remind folks in the contractual service is OWD's community-based organization expenses, which are primarily human capital. So when you put that together, personnel is a really good portion of our overall expenses. Go to the next slide, please. So, as I had said, we had established a baseline, and I think it's important to show folks this because essentially we were going to experience a revenue decline anyway. The South Station air rights deal was a one-time transaction that was included in the FY20 budget. There will be installment payments after the fact that are included in 21. But based on some of the scheduled large items that were coming off, we knew it was going to be a tight year. So I wanted to show you guys this baseline to say if we had just level funded expenses and just kind of rolled forward, it would have been close and we might have been able to figure it out. Again, that the interesting thing here is that we are projecting a large surplus, $11 million. That is because you can kind of see in our projected columns here that we did not launch the Building 108 project and the Charlestown Navy Yard Culvert and Sinkhole project. So we actually were just about ready to go with those as soon as the pandemic hit. And so the construction team has been working really hard to keep those bids open and working with all of the potential bidders to figure out site visits and all of those things. And so they will be taking place next year. And so we're lucky that there were these leftover dollars in order for us to push forward into next year. So we did then, next slide, please. Actually, we can, so there's some highlights here that folks can look at what some of our assumptions were around the baseline scenario, but we can move to the next slide, please. So this is actually our recommended budget. So as you can see, parking revenue, we are anticipating a large decline. We do also see, what's going on in our leases, just to kind of help folks understand. We are talking about our income statement. So even if we set up agreements with tenants to either extend or do any kind of adjustment as a result of this pandemic, which we are actively doing in a variety of ways, as I'm sure the board knows. We simply aren't going to be capturing the revenue that we were otherwise scheduled to be capturing this year. And so that's what's really driving the decline here in combination with some of the items that were already expected to take place this year. So we have to push Building 108 and the Navy Yard project forward, which is why that property management line continues to be so large. And it is the leftover operating surplus from FY20 that will pay for what we had expected to have happen when the revenue came in. So mostly a timing issue, but it is clear that there's an impact from COVID as well. Next slide, please. So again, some of the highlights, and we can kind of just flip through here. So next slide. And then the next slide, one more. So as I had mentioned, what I did want to highlight and spend some time on is what the BPDA is currently including in the budget, things that we have been doing for a while. And so I tried to organize them into the different activity centers. So there's an awful lot of activity that happens with our human resources. We support students in the Crystal Ray program. We have a very diverse internship program. And then we also have been running equity training throughout the year through a partnership with YW. And all of that is housed in our HR department. So they're definitely at the center of this work. Our planning and revenue department budgets include full-time staff specifically for community engagement. We have meeting expenses set aside for translation, interpretation, childcare, space rental. So the budget includes that and has been including that for several years. We've taken a look at our advertising and tried to get very clear about it, because the whole advertising budget is about $220,000. It seems like roughly 20% of that is actually going to advertising in El Mundo, Bay State Banner, more of the local publications, and we also pay for those translation fees, which tends to run at about 20% of that ad as well. So we're going to be tracking and monitoring it as we go, but that's our estimate of investment right now. And we're also leveraging outside funds. As I had mentioned, the Living Cities Inclusive Procurement Accelerator came with a $50,000 grant that we've been working with OED on. We have a solicitation for, we have a request for information out right now, and we soon will be releasing a solicitation for quotes seeking software solutions for subcontract management, which in the world of inclusive procurement is really thought to be where a lot of meat is. And you can make a lot of progress if you can find a way to start to manage your subcontractors, or at least track them and get eyes into that. And so that's a really exciting project that we're working on as well. And obviously all the activity that OWD does in this space is worth highlighting as well. Next slide, please. So we are also really excited to share that there's new investments in this budget as well. They will be establishing a senior level position that will be charged with looking inward and externally. You know, as you could see, those efforts are kind of scattered about the agency. And we have people who have it embedded in a variety of ways. So we're seeking to bring that all together under one orchestra conductor to try to make sure that there's impact and that we're plugged in and situated strategically in that space. And so we're really excited about that. Next slide, please. So overall, the BPDA is requesting approval for a budget that does include the addition of 2 positions. As you can see, there have been eliminated positions as well due to retirements, reorganizations, variety of reasons. Can we flip to the next slide though, because that one's a bit more interesting. So this is where you can look at our staffing from a department level, and you actually get to, we're starting to build in our vacancies. So you can see as a response to the McKinsey report and all the other improvement efforts that we've embarked on in the past few years, yes, the finance division has grown. And you can see our planning department has grown as well. You know, as we kind of move through the years, we're going to think about how this information is informative. And so we'd love any thoughts as well as folks dive into this. Next slide, please. So I'll wrap up with capital. Next slide. So reminder that we have construction projects that sit inside the operating budget, but then we also have our capital funded construction projects. And, you know, majority of the work is happening in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. And we're excited to have additional funding from the city as well. So they did in last year's budget approve $2 million for resiliency projects in the Marine Park. They gave us a little bit of an approval this year from some unallocated funds. You know, nothing to write home about, but we are really excited to move forward with the projects in the Navy Yard as well. So it's going to be a really busy year for us, and we're you know, keeping our eye on what's going on in the economy and the construction space in order to try to get these projects done. So I believe that's the last slide. We can try one more. So that's it for me. So I conclude my presentation and happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
Hey, Michelle, excuse me, it's Teresa. Did you talk about the new fund that we're creating? The equity fund?
But the vote does also include, and that's in the BRA side. So I was going to, so the BRA vote will contain the establishment of an equity fund where we will be taking revenues from our LDAs and we're able to tie them specifically to the equity investments. And so it's similar to our capital reserve fund in a way that we are trying to make sure that revenues that come in get targeted towards very specific initiatives. And so that will be part of the BRA vote.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michelle. Do we have questions from the board?
I just wanted to make a comment. I think this presentation of the budget is another leap forward. You know, you've been leaping forward over a series of years, Michelle, you and your team, and this presentation of the budget was really fantastic. I loved seeing the, you know, the baseline setting of the year and then the adjustments that you made so we can see the thinking about the agency that's going on and adapting to circumstances. And I also want to commend you again on your being a leader on our procurement, equity in our procurement processes. And, you know, the fact that you were already deep into that work and really taking that on just shows the integrity of what we're doing in our racial equity area. And so, and the transparency around the capital needs and the capital projects is again leaps forward from where it used to be. So just a really well put together presentation of our budget. I did have one question, which is on the slide that shows the different entities that comprise the BPDA. Can you briefly touch on the size of each of those entities and what they do, kind of just very briefly?
Oh, sure.
Super briefly.
Yeah, the 101, right? No, I appreciate it. So, so we have two audits that happen. We have the BRA and the EDIC. And so Boston Redevelopment Authority is mostly the Charlestown Navy Yard, a variety of parcels throughout the city, Long Wharf. And so we have about 80 to 90 employees, depending on where we're at, that are BRA. EDIC is much larger. Majority of our employees are EDIC employees, and that covers the Marine Industrial Park, as well as some of the spots along the waterfront. So underneath those two entities, we have, so the Office of Workforce Development sits inside EDIC. And so with that, you kind of get this like three-part, and then also within EDIC is the Boston Local Development Corporation, which does, correct me if I'm wrong here, Teresa, the bonding side of things. And Friends of Youth Boston Opportunity partners with OWD, and so they're a 501c3. Teresa,
I think BIDFA does the bonding, Michelle.
Yeah, sorry. So that's the small business loans, right?
And so what is the size?
And
what is the size? What is the budget size of the BIDFA and the BLDC and the FYOB? Are they small?
Bob, are you on the line here? Because you'll know intimately. I have that information. It's not right at the fingertips because I deeply in BRA and EDIC.
Okay,
Bob, a panel here.
So yes, I am. This is Bob Luisi. Good evening, Madam Chair, and to get down to it, there are the main components of the audits are BRA and EDIC. Smaller audits are for BLDC and BIDFA and Friends of YO. Some are even reviews because of the size of those organizations. There's two people that make up BIDFA and BLDC. Loan components of BLDC are about $1.5 million to $2 million. And the Friends of YO is the entire operation of that specific program that we run for youth and primarily in the Roxbury area. and that runs maybe $1.5 million a year. And a lot of that is stipends and payments to the youth and the staff that run that program. So they're fairly small, but there's a lot of work associated with them.
And thank you
Thank
for
you,
the
Bob.
Yeah, I think this is helpful. You know, this makes me think maybe going forward some slides that help tease this out a little bit and put some magnitude on there so that folks understand what the proportions are. I think is kind of what you're asking for, right?
Yes, thank you.
Definitely. Thank you for the question.
I have one other comment. I just wanted to say, as we enter a more period of economic downturn, I know this creates hardship or a different operating environment for our staff, and I just wanted to thank all of the staff who work so hard. And you know, we've been in a period of positive budget, and now we're entering a period of a very tighter, difficult budget, and it's going to affect our employees. And I just wanted to thank them for their commitment, and we will get through this. And I feel confident that the management is going to manage the budget in the best way they can to continue to support the staff.
Great. Thank you, Carol. Do we have any additional questions from the board?
I do have one. Michelle, Brian Miller, I'm new to the board, so thank you for a great presentation. Nice to meet you.
Hello,
And-
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And during this very difficult time, I know projecting forward is really difficult in a good year, but with all the uncertainty there, are there some big revenue generating items in the budget that you're most concerned about, you know, if the economy doesn't start to turn around fairly soon? And if so, what are they?
Sure, thank you for that. I think where we're at right now is what's clear is parking revenue was disrupted early and significantly. What we're not sure about is lots of surveys have come out talking about people's transportation choices, changes in expectations around returning to office. So it could go either way, but we think that that's probably the most directly vulnerable to the whims of whatever's going on in that retail space. You know, from there, I certainly would invite Brian or Bob to come back in, or even Devin, who might know around like sale of real estate and a long-term meaning around our land. Thankfully, most of the models that I've seen at least are looking like it's a 2-3 year time frame, whatever phase we're in right now. Who knows, of course. So I think, you know, it's also going to be about how long this goes on, because so far we have certain activities around abatements and requests around our leases, but others we haven't heard much, and folks have been paying their bills. You know, so it's still early.
Sure.
So if you want, this is Bob again. Just add some material to your question, Mr. Miller. Some of the more impacted areas other than parking are the seasonal type businesses that, like Long Wharf, the cruise company down there, the business with the Fleet Pavilion and the concerts that are run out of there. There's associated parking with those, the cruises and the associated parking with those, the kiosks and the small things that rely on tourists in Boston. All those things are impacted this year significantly. How far it goes and where this whole thing winds up is hard to tell. But those are the types of businesses that we've made adjustments for in the budget, and they don't have the revenue components that they normally have. So hopefully that helps answer that question.
It does for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, great. Any additional questions from the board?
So I do have a quick question for Bob or Michelle, whichever one. Michelle, I think you said we have about $200 million need for, on infrastructure improvements, and we have about 10%, I think you said, of cash on hand. You spoke about creation of this fund. I think you said LV. Sorry, I'm not familiar with the acronym, but that's a new fund. And I think that's what you said. And you're going to get that money from where to create that fund to finance some of these needs?
Sure. I'll ask Brian Connolly, our CFO, to kind of get ready in the wings here. But the short answer is we have a existing revenue stream that essentially goes into the general fund with all of the other revenues that you see on that pie chart, right? So it's you'll see a category on our table that says equity participation. That's kind of the I guess the previous name of that type of revenue. It's our 2s and 4%, and some of that belongs to the HMA, so that's getting carved out. But looking at the long-term activity of that stream and the source of that, and folks can speak to the details around LDA's land disposition agreements. I've been so deep in areas, but not there yet. But there is revenue there that we are able to tie to these expenses specifically. Brian or Bob, I don't know if either of you want to talk more specifically about the 2s and 4s and how that is operating.
Yeah, this is Bob again, and you know, when you talk about the 2s and 4s, it's a fairly reasonable stream of revenue that's been coming into the agency for years now. It's gone from anywhere from low $1 million to almost $2 million. And, you know, based on what's going on, that was a decision made. I would just say that I understand the question about, do we have future dollars for infrastructure needs and capital spending? And until this pandemic hit, we had 3 years of record revenues and bottom line types of situations. And those were all carefully set aside to help us with moving forward towards the infrastructure needs that we have. And, you know, as the country and everybody else turns around, we will turn it around as well. And I think the operations and the ability to acquire debt for some of these capital projects that we need to do will all be there.
Okay, Bob, it was just, I thought, and again, it's all for my benefit. I didn't understand it. I didn't know if you were creating a fund and taking maybe money from some pension fund monies that are invested elsewhere and maybe taking some of those assets and creating a class just to invest in our properties. Another idea is plenty, Brian Mill is very familiar with this as well. Pension funds are always looking, obviously, to meet their assumptions and invest. And 25% most pension funds do pick real estate, and they like a new way. They go into revenue streams, and they become a partner. Basically, I'm not suggesting we give up any real estate, but that's another stream of revenue if we are looking to borrow money. You know? So that's fine. You answered it perfectly. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. Any additional questions from the board? Again, great job, Michelle. Fabulous tech.
Thank
always
you.
a great part. So,
Madam Chair, could I interrupt you for a second?
yes.
I think Director Golden would like to try to say something. Okay. Go ahead, Director.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the members. Mr. Martin, I just want to back up a little bit on on the nature of the revenue that will be funding this equity program. And we were talking a little bit about it before. We're going to talk about it more in the BDRA section of the proceeding this afternoon. But fundamentally, what happened when the agency acquired through its urban renewal powers, going back decades, multiple properties all over the city, when those properties were acquired by the agency and ultimately put out for development, primarily by private hands, private developers, there was a sum attached. Essentially, we clouded the deed there was an agreement put in place that said, developer of this property, when you sell it, or if you would like to do something different with it than the urban renewal currently allows, you come back to the agency, we will authorize the sale, or we will authorize you to do something different with it than we originally permitted. In exchange for that, you will pay a sum of money to the agency, and we refer to these as 2 and 4%, because very often what they manifest themselves as is when the property, say, is sold, we take 2% or 4%, depending on the property, of the gross sale price. That comes back to the agency. We are talking about dedicating a significant share of those revenues to this equity fund in the budget going forward. So all of this revenue has been paid. You know, it varies depending on the year, because it varies depending on what an owner is doing with their property that was originally acquired by the agency through urban renewal. And simply put, the reason the agency has demanded that kind of money associated with these developments that go back 60 years is because very often they were acquired in the 50s, 60s, 70s for short money. They would make a fairly modest purchase price, but in order to make sure that the people of Boston who were acquiring these properties through this agency, in order to make sure they were ultimately made whole, that a full, robust purchase price was ultimately paid, there were these incremental payments over time. So someone may have acquired a property in 1965, paid a modest sum for it, and they're paying a fairly modest sum because they know they will also have to pay later in future transactions. And the subsequent owners of the property know that too. So these 2 and 4% have been with us really for 60 years, and they continue to provide revenue to the agency, and that revenue is now being committed. A significant portion of that revenue is being committed to this new line item on equity that we're discussing. So sorry for the lengthy explanation, but I think it's an important sort of historical vestige of urban renewal that continues to actually pay dividends for important activities at the agency that benefit the people of Boston. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dr. Golden. Okay, any additional questions? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion to approve the budget is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'll take a roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you very much, Michelle.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. The last item on the agenda is personnel, and we have Jamie. Hey there.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and congratulations, members of the board. For the record, I'm Jamie Lamarco with Human Resources Department. We have a few items for your consideration in the EDIC agenda. There are 4 employment service contractors with the details each listed within the board memo. Claire Shepard, Katie Leisner, Mark Bemis, Joanne Evans, and they are all within the Office of Workforce Development. In addition, we have 2 departures, Cecilia Mondester, Budget and Grants Assistant, and Amy Mahler, Manager of Spark Boston. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, do we have any questions from the board? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, let's take a roll call. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Jamie. Okay, so that concludes the EDIC portion of our meeting. I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Okay, take a roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned. I'll now open up the BPDA portion of the meeting. The Open Public Meeting Law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications, at Xfinity Channel 24, RCN Channel 13, and Verizon Fios Channel 1962. It's also being live streamed at boston.gov/cable. And yes, so this is a June BPDA board meeting, which is being held virtually to ensure the safety of the public, staff members, and BPDA board members during the COVID-19 situation. I will now take a roll call of the board. So, Ms. Jones.
Present.
Mr. Monahan.
Present.
Dr. Landsmark.
Present.
Mr. Miller.
Present.
And Priscilla Rojas, I'm present as well. Okay, so let's do first item on the agenda, request authorization for approval of the minutes of the May 14th, 2020 meeting. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 2, Board of Appeal.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Jeff Hampton, Senior Zoning Planner for the BPDA. It's been a couple of months with the Board of Appeal canceling all of their hearings. So this is the first block in about 2 months. Planning staff is prepared for you tonight 58 petitions for zoning relief that will be transmitted to the Board of Appeal. These will cover the meetings for June 23rd, June 30th, and July 14th. There is a reduction of 2 cases in the original list sent to you. Those 2 cases are both subject to Article 80 small project review, and the ZBA vote will be incorporated in those board memos. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 3, request authorization to amend the existing license agreement with Cap Long Wharf LLC to extend the expiration date and to establish a new license fee for the use of approximately 15,000 square feet of land adjacent to the Chart House restaurant on Long Wharf for monthly customer and visitor parking. Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The subject property is a 15,000 square foot vacant lot immediately adjacent to the south of the Chart House restaurant on Long Wharf. In 2009, BPDA entered into a lease with the then owner of the custom block building on the west side of Long Wharf, as well as the building that houses the Chart House restaurant. Those are both owned by the same entity. The lot was used for custom block tenant and visitor parking and Chart House customer parking in the evenings. In 2015, Capital Properties formed an LLC called Cap Long Wharf LLC. Capital Properties purchased those facilities along with the parking license. The use of the parking lot was unchanged. Capital Properties is a privately owned real estate investment development and management company founded in Boston in 1977. They've acquired, developed, and managed over 18,000 apartment units and over 8 million square feet of commercial real estate, primarily in major markets between Boston and Atlanta. In 2019, BPDA extended the license with Capital Properties for the subject parking lot for 1 year, and it was scheduled to expire on May 31st of 2020. BPDA is currently only considering 1-year agreements with Capital Properties pending the completion of the downtown municipal harbor plan and to ascertain whether the subject property will be converted into a public park. The Chathouse restaurant remains closed and the custom block remains untenanted, with interior tenant improvements only now resuming as affected the shutdown for COVID-19. The BPDA has the option to recapture the parking lot and operate it as we do other income-producing parking lots. Or we also have the opportunity to relicense it to Capital Properties. At the May 20 board meeting last month, we represented our opinion that it was not in BPDA's financial interest to negotiate the terms and conditions of an extension without more due diligence under the current economic uncertainty. We wanted some time to do some more market analysis, et cetera. Accordingly, we requested an extension of the license term through June 30th of 2020 to allow for more thoughtful deliberation. Since the May board meeting, staff has analyzed the projected revenue that the lot would could net BPDA through May 31st of 2021 in the event that we elected to recapture the lot and run it ourselves as an investment property. We simultaneously negotiated with Capital Properties for a fixed rent over that same period of time. Just quickly as background, from June 2019 to May 2020, Capital Properties paid to BPDA $13,000 per month or $156,000 for the right to use that property. Staff is recommending that the lot be again licensed to Capital Properties for a 1-year term through May 2021 at a modified but guaranteed rent structure. We're proposing no rent for June and July, a 50% reduction or $6,500 for each of the following 3 months ending in October of 2020, and then back to the full $13,000 per month from November 2020 to May 2021. The total of that would be $110,500. While that represents a 41% reduction in rent received from the previous license term, it exceeds BPDA forecasts, and it's also guaranteed rent. It also avoids BPDA financial expense of managing the lot and the uncertainty of forecasting revenue. So I personally firmly believe that it is in the agency's best fiscal interest to extend the existing license with Capital Properties through May 31st, 2021 on the terms I just discussed and that are also in the board memorandum and the term sheet attached thereto. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Do you have any questions from the board? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Item number 4, request authorization to enter into a license agreement with Preservation of Affordable Housing LLC for the use of a portion of Parcel 3 in the Campus High School urban renewal area for construction laydown and storage in connection with the Whittier Phase 2 affordable housing development. Lauren.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through efforts led by the Mayor's Office, the Boston Housing Authority, the Whittier Street Tenant Task Force, and the Preservation of Affordable Housing, POA, the Whittier Street housing development is currently being redeveloped through a Federal Choice Neighborhoods Initiatives grant. In addition to the federal funding, the Commonwealth's Department of Housing and Community Development is supporting the project with federal and state low-income housing tax credits and subsidy funds. The City of Boston also supports the development with local funding for affordable housing creation and preservation. The Whittier Choice Neighborhoods Initiatives, CNI, is a collaboration between POA, NEI General Contractors, Madison Park Development Corporation, and the Boston Housing Authority to redevelop the Whittier Street apartments on Tremont Street in Roxbury. CNI will redevelop the site and rebuild over 350 units of mixed income housing and commercial space. Phase 1 of the redevelopment was completed in January 2020. The Whittier team is asked to use approximately 25,000 square feet of land within the P3 development parcel in the campus high school urban renewal area immediately adjacent to Madison Park Field. The premises shall be used exclusively for the purpose of supporting the Whittier Phase 2 construction. Due to the affordable housing component of the development and the significant public subsidy required, no fee is proposed for the use of the licensed premises. The Whittier team will be required to allow access to the site to support the BPDA's due diligence pertaining to the future redevelopment of the site. We request that the director be authorized to enter into a license agreement with POA, Preservation of Affordable Housing LLC, for the use of land located on parcel P3 to be used as support for the Whittier Phase 2 affordable housing development, including material laydown, storage trailers, field office trailers, and parking.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Take roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 5, request authorization to enter into short-term license agreements for use of BRA-owned properties for COVID-19 related relief and recovery efforts. Devin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is the same topic that was discussed during the EIC portion of the agenda to allow us to enter into short-term license agreements for COVID-19 relief and recovery efforts. If there are any, I don't have any further presentation, but if there are any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, do we have any questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Devin. Item number 6, request authorization to award a contract to Bargman Hendry plus Archetype, Inc. for design services for basement waterproofing at the China Trade Building located at 2 Boylston Street in Chinatown in an amount not to exceed $70,539. Laura, or not Laura? And you're on.
William.
Yeah, William.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I am William Epperson, Deputy Director for Capital Construction within the Real Estate Department. I am before you today to request authorization to execute a design contract with Bargman Hendry Archetype, commonly referred to as BHNA, for the basement waterproofing project at the China Trade Center building located at 2 Boylston Street in Boston. This matter was last before you at the February 2020 board meeting to request authorization to solicit qualifications and fees for this work. The building is experiencing water infiltration along the Washington Street side where the basement extends beneath the hollow sidewalk above. The sidewalk needs to be replaced and the brick foundation wall that abuts the MBTA Orange Line tunnel needs to be waterproofed to eliminate future water infiltration. The design will include replacement of the structural sidewalk slab and installation of a waterproofing layer for both the sidewalk vault and the foundation wall below. Plans and specifications will be prepared in accordance with Chapter 149 of the Massachusetts General Laws. The contract will also include bid assistance, resident engineering services, and construction administration. The BPDA issued a formal request for qualifications in accordance with Chapter 7C of the Massachusetts General Laws on May 13th of 2020. The process included outreach to MBE and WBE firms, as well as a pre-submission conference, which was held with interested respondents. 4 firms submitted qualifications in response to the solicitation on May 29th of 2020. They were Bargman Henry Archetype, CBI Consulting, DeGiorgio Associates, and Stephen Wessling Architects. A designer selection committee was assembled to review each submitting team's qualifications and relevant experience. Based on that review, the committee unanimously recommends the design contract be awarded to BH&A. BH&A is a certified woman-owned minority business with previous experience in the building with a similar waterproofing project along the Boylston Street side. They have assembled a qualified team of sub-consultant engineers that includes other MBE firms. The total contract award is for $70,539 and has been appropriately budgeted for in the agency's fiscal year 21 capital budget. Therefore, we are requesting that the director be authorized to enter into this contract with BH&A. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do you have any questions from the board?
I have one question. This kind of groundwater flooding can create a lot of mold, and because this space is right next to the library, are you all checking? I assume you're checking for that, but I used to be in a space that had this chronically, and it can really create a lot of moisture problems in the whole basement.
Absolutely, and I appreciate the question. We have had the basement space tested, and there is presence of mold. Part of this design contract will be for the designer to create a space to prevent the spread of that mold. It'll be properly pressurized, and the design consultant will monitor that work as the construction progresses. We do have a library in the building. There's children programming in the building. So that was a priority for us to make sure that this designer will take that into consideration. Once the construction progresses, we will be able to remediate the mold that's there in the basement, but we cannot do so until we stop the water infiltration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item number 7, request authorization to extend the final designation of Hyperion LLC as redeveloper of parcel P-3B-1 located at 100 Interval Street in the Brunswick King Urban Renewal Area for landscaped open space purposes. Ray?
Can you see me?
Yes, I can see it and
I
hear.
got a message that said there are too many webcams in operation. Thank you, Madam Chair, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, and board members. Parcel P-3B-1 is a small vacant abutter parcel measuring approximately 1,248 square feet located behind 102 Intervale Street, a 3-family home in Roxbury. This sale is essentially a housekeeping matter, finishing BPDA's disposition process at this location that was begun some 13 years ago. We were aiming to convey unbuildable open space to abutters by subdividing a landlocked strip of land behind 4 Intervale Street homes. The other 3 sales were completed at that time, but the previous owner of 102 Intervale Street passed away before this abutter sale was complete. So the sale that is the subject of today's vote is to the new owner of 102 Intervale Street, Hyperion LLC. Hyperion will improve this parcel with a new fence, landscaped garden area, removal of all trash and debris, and create a parking space. The uses will be restricted by a land disposition agreement. As of Tuesday, the buyer has signed the deed and LDA, so we're seeking today's extension of the final designation just to complete the execution on our end of the closing documents and to facilitate the recording of the deed and LDA. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 8, request authorization to extend the tentative designation of 288 Tremont Street Partners, LLC, as redeveloper of parcel P12C, located at 290 Tremont Street in the South Cove Urban Renewal Area, Midtown Cultural District, for the long-term lease and redevelopment of parcel P-12C.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. I'm here to request that the board please vote to extend this tentative designation for 12 months of 288 Tremont Street Partners, LLC, for the redevelopment of a portion of parcel 12C, again, located at 290 Tremont Street in South Cove Urban Renewal Area in the Chinatown Midtown Cultural section of the city. This approximately 29,000 square foot BPDA owned site has been operated as a parking lot by private parking operators on behalf of the BPDA for a number of years. As you recall, 288 Tremont Street Partners submitted the sole proposal in response to BPDA's request for proposals, which was due on January 10th, 2018. 288 Tremont Street Partners LLC is a collaborative entity consisting of the Asian Community Development Corporation, Corcoran Jennison Companies, who own the Doubletree Hotel that's to the south of the site, Millennium Boston, and Tufts Shared Services, the owners of the parking garage that's located to the north of the site. 288 Tremont Street Partners is proposing to construct an approximately 350-foot tall building of approximately 426,500 square feet, featuring up to 168 affordable rental and homeownership units, and up to 340 parking space extension of the adjacent Tufts garage, and up to 200 key hotel with 2,500 square feet of ground floor retail space and community space on the ground level that's anticipated to be the new home of the Chinatown branch of the Boston Public Library. And as you recall, this project received Article 80 approval at the February 2020 board. So the proponent right now is awaiting the results of its application earlier this year for state and federal affordable housing subsidies. And the results of that financing round are expected to be announced later this month. If the proponent is successful in securing funding in this funding round, it will continue to proceed with obtaining its final design approval, finalizing its equity funding sources, obtaining bids on its final construction documents, finalizing ground lease negotiations with the BPDA, obtaining building permits, and these are all the steps that would be necessary to receive final designation from the board ultimately. So therefore, the staff recommends that the board please approve this extension in order to allow the project to continue moving forward. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Ray. Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 9, request authorization to extend tentative designation of Tenants Development Corporation as redeveloper of parcel 22A located at 151 Lenox Street in the South End Urban Renewal Area for the development of a community center. Ray.
Thank you again, Madam Chair, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. I'm requesting an additional 90-day extension to the tentative designation for Tenants Development Corporation of Roxbury, I'll refer to them as TDC, for the redevelopment of BPD-owned parcel 22A located at 151 Lenox Street in the South End Urban Renewal Area. The board originally voted to award TDC tentative designation in June of 2018 and has extended the tentative designation in March, June, September, and December of 2019, and also in March of 2020. So TDC is proposing to develop an approximately 18,000 square foot, 4-story community center, and it will also include office space for its headquarters. Since the March 2020 extension, the capital campaign has been hampered because of the COVID-19 restrictions and the inability to do live events. The team is working on a virtual event and outreach to their targeted, my cat is, excuse me, getting in the way here. Come on, cut it out. Sorry about that. An outreach to their targeted philanthropic community, as well as convening a meeting with advisory stakeholders. TDC expects to use the requested extension to continue adjusting its schematic designs, advance the capital campaign, submit foundation grant applications, and do media outreach and cultivation events. For these reasons, staff requests that TDC receive an extension to their tentative designation to continue moving forward. I'm happy to answer any questions, and also Sean Curran, who's TDC's capital campaign consultant, is standing by as well to answer any questions.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the board?
Given what's going on in the economy at this moment, is this tentative designation going to be long enough for them to be able to achieve their goal? I mean, I know they can come back to us, but fundraising is really tough at this moment. And
yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that since, I mean, the last extension was in March, and it was like literally, I think a day or two before we shut down, everything shut down. So this last, quarter has been, everybody has just been recalibrating and trying to figure out, how to operate in this new normal. So yeah, I would anticipate that, we would be coming back in another 3 months for another extension. So, I mean, definitely, I'm sure that will be the case.
As a follow-up to Ted's question, it might be helpful to get an update on the capital campaign. How is it going? Where is it at right now? I see they had a big event planned that was unfortunately canceled. So maybe the board could get an update on the capital campaign.
Are you here, Sean?
I am.
Oh, good, great.
So basically, the large event that was planned for April, we've had to break into several smaller events because they're going to have to be held over Zoom. The larger event was set to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Rabbinical Council's decision, which led to the formation of Tenants Development Corporation in the South End, and was a great example of the Jewish community and the largely Black community in the South End coming together to deliver justice, frankly, for those tenants who had sought support from their landlord, had sought support from their local state legislator group, and ultimately went to the Boston Rabbinical Council, who ruled in their favor, and it led to the creation of the Housing Court. It led to the creation of the Tenants Development Corporation, and so the celebration of that 50th anniversary and a forum of some of the folks who participated in that effort was set for April. What we've done is taken what are largely Jewish philanthropic organizations and community-based organizations, and we are working with each and every one of them individually to talk about this story, to bring some of these same parties to those conversations in an effort to get them to support on this 50th anniversary that Rabbinical Council decision. And aside from that, we're also working with the Boston Foundation to have them pull together an investment meeting in Lenox Street and in the housing in the community center project itself. So that's what we're doing right now. We're scheduling all of these Zoom conferences. We have one upcoming through members of Temple Israel. We have
reached out and asked for one with AJC, JCRC, and we're going to continue to do that over the course of the next month. What we're hoping is to get portfolios in the hands of some of the more philanthropic folks who are involved not only in the housing marketplace, but also folks who are involved in youth connection. Certainly, the Lex Street housing development is one of those organizations that has suffered over many, many years from not having a lot of programming dollars expended there. And so the community center is an important thing.
And Sean, I see the campaign has a goal of $3 million for this project. How are you doing getting towards that goal?
So we have a $500,000 commitment presently, and we've got foundation requests out that total somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 million. What we have to do is obviously close a percentage of those. That will let us know how much we have left to do.
Okay, great. Thank you, and best of luck. We wish you all the best with the capital campaign.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do we have any further questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, take a roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, item number 10, request authorization to issue a certificate of completion to ESJ Way LLC for the successful completion of the Brinks project, formerly known as the Goddard House, located at 201 through 221 South Huntington Avenue in Jamaica Plain. And as this is a certificate of completion, I think if we don't have any questions from the board, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, taking a roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 11, request authorization to issue a certificate of approval pursuant to Article 80E-6 Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the construction of 18 residential condominium units, including 2 IDP units and 1 ground floor commercial unit, and 12 interior parking spaces and 24 bicycle storage spaces located at 3992 through 3996 Washington Street, to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief subject to BPDA design review and to take all related actions. Stephen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary and Director Golden. My name is Stephen Harvey and I'm a project manager at the BPDA, and I want to thank you for your time today. The project I bring before you today is 3992-3996 Washington Street, located in the Rosendale neighborhood of Boston. On December 19, 2019, the Boston Planning and Development Agency received the small project review application from Boston Building Company, LLC, the proponent. Boston Building Company, LLC, the proponent, proposed to construct a new mixed-use development at the project site. Like other projects in the city of Boston, the proposed project seeks to redevelop an existing commercial site or a car repair and service with a new residential building. The new structure would contain 18 condominium units along with 1 ground level commercial space. The proposed project will also include 12 interior parking spaces and 24 bicycle parking spaces. On February 3rd, 2020, I held a public meeting at the Archdale Community Center in Rosendale. The meeting was well attended and the project was positively received by those present. That February 3rd meeting was advertised in the Bay State Banner and the Parkway Transcript. The project comment period ended on February 21st, 2020. With that said, I would like to pass it over to Jeffrey Drago, the project attorney. Jeff will run through the project presentation, and we will answer any questions put forward. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Stephen. Madam Chair, can you hear me okay? I just want to be sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, Secretary Polimis. Again, Jeff Drago with Drago and Toscano, with the attorneys representing Boston Builders, the developers of 3992-3996 Washington Street. And we also have Chu and Company as the architects on the project. As you can see in the opening slide, this is the rendering of the front rendering of the corner along Archdale as well as Washington Street, where 3992 Washington Street resides. We're going to show you some pictures in a moment that shows the existing conditions. It is an automotive repair shop, and although it falls in a commercial district, it is surrounded by residential housing, some new residential condominiums right at the next block. The developer's proposal wanted to come up with something that is more conducive to the area by creating housing. This would be a condominium project. We also retained and have a small retail space on the ground level to invigorate that ground level and also keep within that commercial corridor. Next slide, please. And so the project itself is 20,000 gross square feet of residential housing. This is 18 units above parking and lobby facility. Those 18 units would be condominium development. 2 of those units would be IDP units on site, and we'd also be contributing $68,000 to the IDP fund as well. This investment would be $5.7 million approximately to redevelop the property and also creating 25 construction jobs in the process. As mentioned, there's a small 850 square foot first floor commercial space, which would be retail space. And that's something that I'm working with the community during the community process and outreach that they wanted to see as well. We would be also, as part of our mitigation and community give back, installing a building canopy with benches out front. This is on a bus route, and the bus stop is directly in front of our building along the Washington Street side. That would be part of mitigation, as well as a dedicated bike room for the residents with 24 bicycles on site, or spaces for 25 bicycles, a $50,000 contribution to BPDA for transportation infrastructure improvements along that Washington Street area, which is something that folks wanted to see. And also a public transportation information station inside ground level so that residents of the building and those standing along the bus stop could see through the glass, and no bus routes and T station routes. It is directly 0.7 miles from Forest Hills as our nearest T station. It also has a lot of green space right near the Arboretum and Healy Park within short walking distance. Next slide, please. And so again, that's just the proposal that was mentioned with the 18 units and 1 commercial space. This does fall in a local convenience sub-district, so that's why we did want to also retain a small commercial component on site. The lot size is 7,280 square feet, and the gross square footage in its totality is 21,636 square feet. Next slide, please. This is just an aerial view of existing conditions with the yellow arrow pointing out the repair shop station. And as you can see, as you go down Washington Street to Whipple Ave, there's a bunch of new condominiums that were developed on the right, as well as a number of multifamily residential in and around us. Next slide, please. This is a front existing condition picture of the auto use that's there. And as you can see, it's got a lot of parking, hot top space, and we wanted to invigorate that space. Next slide, please. So this is our ground level. As you can see, The parking garage entrance would be along Archdale Road, pulling into the garage, and that would be dedicated for 12 parking spaces. In the front of the building along the Washington Street side, that would be our entranceway for residents, as well as the 845 square foot commercial space. And just to note, in the front, you can see three sort of, it looks like benches or darkened spaces. That would be our property that we would be dedicating for the canopy and sitting area for folks along the bus stop. Next slide, please. This is our typical floor plan. So it's 6 units per floor above the parking facility. And just a breakdown, we're proposing 6 one-bedroom units and 12 two-bedroom units. They vary in size from the one beds being 630 to 810 square feet, and the two-bedroom units anywhere from 865 to 923 square feet. Next slide, please. This is our Washington Street elevation. So as was mentioned, this is a 4-story building proposed at 45 feet in height. We are also proposing 1,041 square foot communal roof deck on the building. They would have elevator access as well as a staircase to get to the top. Next slide, please. This is our left side Archdale elevation as well, similar in scope. Next slide, please. And this is our rear elevation in the property, and you can just see the head house and stairwell and elevator shaft as well from the back. Next slide, please. And this is our right side elevation, similar as the left. Next slide, please. And this is just a rendering superimposed as you look a view from Washington Street. And you can see some of the multifamily structure and some of the around us, and as well as some of the smaller commercial buildings. Next slide. And this is a view in the other direction. There is, as you can see some of the sort of 3-family or 4-unit buildings as you go down the street. There is the Domino's next to us that's still existing as well. I think that concludes our presentation. I can entertain any questions that the board may have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board?
845 square feet seems like a very small retail space. What kind of feedback are you getting in terms of who might occupy that space?
So yeah, we wanted to have enough space on that ground level because we were limited to have parking, but we were thinking smaller store, coffee shop. That was what the residents were saying, small takeout, small only takeout type restaurant or coffee shop, with maybe a few tables. But it was more for walking distance for residents that live in the area where there are now more multifamily residential coming into that area, as well as the residents of the building. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, seeing and hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item number 12. Request authorization to approve the transfer of the new Boston Food Market Chapter 121A project by adoption of the Fifth Amendment to the report and decision for the transfer of the project, changes to the ownership, and to take all related actions. I'm not sure who's presenting this one.
I am, Madam Chair. It's Renee.
Hey, Renee.
Good afternoon. Can you see us? Are we up, right?
No.
Turn on the webcam. Please share my webcam. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, I see that Director Brian Golden's name is up. It's Renee LaFave, General Counsel for BPDA. I'm here before you to seek your approval and adoption of a Fifth Amendment to the report and decision on the New Boston Food Market Chapter 121A project. The project is located on various addresses.
Did you bring Paravoria?
I think you can keep going.
It's located on various addresses in Whitehead Circle and Food Mart Road in South Boston. The project area consists of approximately 19 acres of land that is surrounded by land and is commonly referred to as Whitehead Circle. It's bounded by the South Boston Bypass Road and New Frontage Road to the north, located east of the Southeast Expressway and south of the city tow lot, which lies off of Frontage Road. The project consists of 9 buildings together with parking areas, roadways, and railways. It was originally approved by the BRA on August 2nd, 1967 through the adoption of a report and decision. New Boston Food Market Development Corporation, a Massachusetts corporation, was the Chapter 121A entity approved by the BRA to own and operate the project. Today, New Boston operates as a cooperative and consists of 20 shareholders and 26 tenants, all engaged in food distribution and processing with a total of 900 employees. The report and decision for the project has been amended 4 times. Today, a new entity, Whitehead REIT LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, qualified to do business in Massachusetts, and the current owners now propose to transfer the project ownership by sale of all of the existing shares of the New Boston Corporation through a merger agreement. As a result, New Boston Corporation will be owned by one entity, Whitehead REIT. The board memorandum provides more details on the ownership structure. Ultimately, the project will be majority owned and controlled by a subsidiary LLC made up of investors with William Caravori of Able Company as its authorized agent. The current owners will remain on the project area and continue to operate their food distribution and processing, as well as wind down their businesses and relocate for approximately 1 year. Many of the current owners have been operating in the project area for several decades, and their businesses are closing down or relocating. The size of the project area, original buildings, and infrastructure are no longer appropriate for the remaining distribution and processing operations. The project transfer will result in significant increased investment in the project area and surrounding property by Whitehead REIT and contemplates future improvements to the project area and surrounding property. The transfer of the project will enable Whitehead REIT to potentially amass a parcel assemblage towards transformative improvements to a strategically located area in the city of Boston. The project area will remain for food processing and distribution as long as the current owners remain. Thereafter, the underlying zoning will apply, and any changes or improvements to be proposed by Whitehead REIT must come before the board prior to implementation. Bill Caravori and his attorney, Christopher Tesouris, are available if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Renee. Do we have any questions from the board?
What is the track record of this development entity in terms of the kinds of projects that they have developed in the past? And could you just clarify, my understanding is that the current tenants will likely be there for another year, but then beyond that, whatever the transformative plan is for this massive site, really in the middle of the city, hasn't yet been determined. So do we have any sense of what will become of this site in the longer term?
Renee, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Hello. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, Secretary Polimas.
My name is Bill Caravori. I'm the president of Able Company and the developer for Widett Reed. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of this application, and I would like to answer those questions. And then also, I believe that a member of Boston Food Market Development Corporation, the president of the existing tenants, is here as well and can speak for them and how those tenants or what their plan is. As far as experience goes, we have quite a lot of experience here on this team, most notably and most appropriately to this process. I would say, I'd like to direct your attention. I was the managing director of, or managing partner of Abbey Group when we acquired and permitted, and are now in the process of developing the exchange, the flower exchange just across the highway on the other side of the highway. And that project actually quite well informed me about Widett and the similar issues that existed there. But that project, Exchange South End, in a lot of ways is a good barometer of how we intend to proceed with our development planning here at Widett, in that we conducted what many would say was a very inclusive and a very community-oriented development planning process, where we looked to incorporate all of the stakeholders in the communities that could have benefited and been impacted by Exchange South End, and we invited them through an in-depth series of engagement and outreach to help shape that development, which they did. And to the credit of that process, we were able to take what was at that time, and still is, I believe, the largest real estate development project approved in the South End's history without any opposition. And we consider that kind of engagement and community participation to be vital here for Widett as well. And we will be following that same path in terms of identifying and then creating a development plan that is a benefit to the community. As far as the tenants involved, I will try to see if Jeff Corrin can answer that. Or Jeff, are you available on the line here as well? Okay, he may not be.
He is here. He just muted himself. Jeff, go ahead and unmute yourself there.
I'm unmuted. I'm green now. You can hear me now?
Yes. So,
we can hear you, Jeff.
You can hear me? Okay. I'm the president of the New Boston Food Market Development Corporation. There's 27 businesses here, 28 stockholders. And this merger, actually, we have 100% participation. It's going to enable most of the businesses here to actually expand, to redevelop ourselves in this area, to expand in a facility that needs to be updated. Wasn't an option for us. We didn't have the capital. But with this merger going through, it will enable most companies here to move on and to actually expand and hire more people and actually be much more effective. And we have enough time. They're allowing us a year to continue business and to find new places. And I don't anticipate anybody actually closing. I think everybody will continue with business and go on. And I think it's a good thing for everybody. It looks like a good thing for the city and a good thing for every business here. Everybody seems to be happy. I can answer any more questions if you have them, but we're in favor of it.
quick question. Do you picture most of your tenants moving out of the city or staying in the city?
I think, I'm not, because I'm not privy to everybody's business plan, because that's not my job. But I think it might be 50-50. We'll have some stay in the city. I know a few of them, yeah, probably half want to remain in the city, and we'll try to do that. And some others will go to the suburbs, just because of the economics.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions from the board?
This is Brian. Just maybe a follow-up to Ted's question. Bill, it sounds like you're just seeing what the market will bring to you as far as future development. So right now you don't have any plans. You're in the early stages. Is that correct?
We are in the early stages. That is correct. We've really been focusing on getting ourselves to this milestone achievement here in bringing this transaction to a close. We've done planning, but there's a lot of this is a large site, and there's a lot of potential opportunity here, and we are, and we haven't really had a chance to get feedback from the other stakeholders to help shape what we're going to do, and we look forward to doing that.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions from the board? Okay, well, we look forward to kind of seeing how this project progresses. It is definitely a large, large portion of land here in the city, and trust that your community process, continues to be, to do the outreach and to really think about what, what's best for that particular land use. So good luck with that. And if there aren't any more questions, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Okay, and the chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 13, request authorization to issue a partial certificate of completion in accordance with section 3.05 of the land disposition agreement as amended between the BRA and Hamilton Northeast Development LLC for the successful completion of the 150 Camden Street project located on a portion of parcel 16 in the South End Urban Renewal Area, project number Mass R-56. Ebony?
Hello. Hold on 1 second, sorry. I have to accept the webcam. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. Hamilton Northeast Development Company, LLC, constructed a new 5-story building that includes 44 multifamily residential rental units located at 150 Camden Street on a portion of parcel 16 in the South End Urban Renewal Area. The project is phase 2 of the Douglas Plaza redevelopment project and was approved in the 5th Amendment to Land Disposition Agreement recorded in book 62228, page 63. BPDA staff inspected the property on June 3rd with Steve Weinig of Hamilton Construction Management Corp. We toured the indoor and outdoor public spaces as well as several units in the 44-unit apartment building. BPDA staff recommend to issue a partial certificate of completion based on the requirements of the amended LDA. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ebony. Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Okay, and the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Ebony.
Thank you.
Okay. So wait, what time is it? Okay, so we're going to skip item number 14 because that's the public hearing and it is 5:25 and we can't start till 5:30. So let's go to item number 15, request authorization to approve the Boston Redevelopment Authority fiscal year 21 budget. Michelle, we already kind of did that, right? Do we just take a vote here, Teresa? Or do you, go ahead, Michelle.
Yes, hello. I had done the larger presentation before, but this vote is for the BRA portion. And as we had briefly discussed before, this vote will include the establishment of the Equity and Inclusion Fund. And so in the memo is some details about that.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Okay,
Could you just elaborate a little bit on the fund?
Sure. So finance is establishing a methodology to ensure available proceeds from equity participation get tied directly to these expenses. I think the way I would simplify it is by processing the funds in these way, we'll be able to institutionalize the investments by making this commitment and the vote to establish this fund. Removes the opportunity for the BPDA in a few years to say, gee, based on these economic climates, I'd really like to use these funds for other things. It really locks it in and institutionalizes this. And then, the interactions with the board around managing that fund helps us do this in our public forum so that, folks can hear about the work that we're doing. Does that help? Or I also have Brian Connolly too, who might be able to dive into the more technical side around how we're financing.
Very briefly, this is Brian Connolly, Director of Finance. Very briefly, the fund, it's more of an accounting mechanism. It is not a traditional separate fund where revenues are put in separate bank accounts. We're using the term similar to how we've used capital reserve fund. So it's more of a tool, a set-aside tool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, it's going to be funding the new position that we're creating in that department? Is that?
That is
Yes.
correct.
As well as the non-personnel activities that are already happening. And we have additional activities as a result of this person's work and planning.
Okay, great. Any additional questions from the board?
I guess I have one. So is this a portion of the funds that I might be wrong on the term, the 2 and the 4 are the equity participation? Is it a portion that will be designated for this objective? Okay. And in the event it comes in light in a certain year, do we just manage that, or how do you look out the next couple of years if there's not much that's flowing in for some reason in a particular year?
Yeah, I think, we do try to take an all funds approach. And, I think the past performance and the way the agreements are written, we feel that this is a very a stable, steady revenue stream based on our historic analysis.
You would know better than I. Okay. I just might be choppy years, but you've got a way to streamline that.
Thank you.
I think that answers my question.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Any additional questions? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Budget approved.
Thank you.
Okay, let's do one more as we have 1 minute. We'll skip to item number 17, contractual. So I need a motion to pay our bills.
I move we pay our bills.
I second that.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Mr. Landsmark?
Aye.
And Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Okay. So just want to confirm with Secretary Polhemus that I am okay to begin the public hearing.
Yes, you can begin with the chairman's statement.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority doing business as a Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Article 80D of the Boston Zoning Code regarding the Tufts University Institutional Master Plan Amendment and Renewal. The hearing was duly advertised on May 29, 2020 in the Boston Herald. This is a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency. Staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, anyone who wishes to testify about the proposed project will be afforded an opportunity to do so. We are taking support and opposition at the same time. The combined testimony is different from our usual format due to the hearing being held virtually, and all testimony will be recorded accurately. If you are planning to testify, please take time now to verify that your computer microphone is active. Then click the green hand on your webinar control panel, which will signal to staff that you would like to testify. When I call for all testimony, staff will announce your name and unmute your microphone. Your webcam will not be active. At the conclusion of all oral testimony, any email testimony will be read out loud. Finally, the proponents are allowed a period of 5 to 10 minutes of rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain, and at that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Edward Carmody will now begin the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. The proposal before you is the Tufts University Institutional Master Plan Amendment, seeking to renew the Institutional Master Plan for a period of 4 years until October 2023. The amended and renewed Institutional Master Plan adds reference to 2 existing buildings, one in the Fenway neighborhood and one in Mission Hill, that are leased by the university from the Museum of Fine Arts and together operate as the School of the Museum of Fine Arts at Tufts University. The amended IMP brings this school into the Institutional Master Plan alongside the existing Health Sciences campus in Chinatown. With this master plan, there is no new development proposed. It simply serves as an update to the university's Boston presence and keeps the university in compliance with maintaining an active institutional master plan. The community review process involved 1 task force meeting open to the wider public, where the university updated its constituents on its operations of these 2 buildings. There was no opposition to renewing the plan, and we appreciate Tufts for taking this step to remain in ongoing dialogue with the community in the 3 neighborhoods that its campus reaches. At this time, I will turn it over to Caitlin Goslin, Director of Campus and Capital Renewal Planning from Tufts University, to go through the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eddie. It's nice to join you all today. We are very proud of Tufts' long-standing partnership with the city of Boston. In this brief slideshow that we're about to review some of the contributions to the city's economy, residents, and local nonprofits. Next slide. So we're going to look at both a brief overview of our health science campus, as well as the SMFA campus and our community benefits. Next slide. At Tufts, this is just a brief overview of some of the contributions. We have 650 Tufts employees, myself included, that live in the city of Boston with a combined salary of $46 million. We maintain 2 green spaces, a park in Chinatown that is open to all, and a landscape square in the heart of Mission Hill, which I will explain in a little bit more detail in a minute. We also maintain 40+ community partnerships in Boston and annually award grants, sponsorships, and provide free facility use to many of our nonprofit partners. Next slide. As Eddie stated earlier, our IMP amendment does two key things. The first asks to extend our existing IMP for the next 4 years. And second, amends the plan to add the SMFA School Museum of Fine Arts to our existing master plan. And just to give you a little bit of a brief history on the SMFA, in July of 2016, Tufts acquired the academic programs and personal property and the license to the use of the name SMFA from the Museum of Fine Arts. The SMFA has been a leader in arts education for nearly 150 years, and the school has added much to Tufts' mission and education value. We at Tufts actually had a relationship with the school for more than 40 years before the acquisition of the program. Next slide. Tufts thinks of ourselves as a student-centered research university. We have 4 campuses in the greater Boston area. The Medford Somerville campus, where the vast majority of our undergraduate students are located, our veterinary school and clinic in Grafton, Massachusetts, and 2 campuses in Boston, the SMFA and the Health Science campus in Chinatown. Together, we have about 1,100 students. About a quarter of these students are on the 2 Boston campuses. In Chinatown, we have approximately 2,800 graduate students. We are very proud of our top-notch medical, nutrition, and dental schools, as well as the partnership we have with the USDA at the HNRCA, the Human Nutrition Research Center on Aging. Our dental clinics provide great dental care to much of the surrounding communities and remained open during the latest COVID crisis so they could provide relief to the Tufts Medical Center's emergency department where those patients would have most likely gone anyways. At the SMFA, we currently have about 180 talented and curious students studying to become artists. Next slide. Just a brief overview of the Health Science campus. This is a site plan of the Health Science campus in the Chinatown district. We own 9 buildings totaling about 1 million square feet, and the buildings that we own are shown in the dark blue. Number 8 is actually HNRCA, and that is a joint venture with the USDA in the building ownership as well. We lease a small amount of space in 2 buildings on Nealon Street, both at 35 and 75 Nealon Street, and those buildings are shown in the light blue. And Tufts Medical Center is shown in purple, and it's important to note that the university is not the medical center. While we have many synergies and things we collaborate on, the institutes are 2 separate entities and submit 2 separate IMPs to the city. Next slide. Just take a moment to highlight a couple of the recently completed projects on our Health Science campus. The first being the dental lobby transformation. The lobby and the entry to the dental school recently moved from Nealon Street to Washington Street, and we also added an additional elevator. The project was delayed due to the construction stop in Boston. However, construction has restarted and is expected to wrap up in a couple months. When complete, the project will provide better access for Boston residents visiting the dental clinic. It's right across the street from the Orange Line stop. As laid out in our last IMP update, we collaborated with TMC to improve the campus signage for both the university and the medical center, improving wayfinding in the general area. Next slide. We foresee any projects in the next 4 years as a response to academic and institutional needs, mostly in the form of small interior renovations. The first, an example of this would be, we are planning to relocate our medical school's clinical skills and simulation center from leased space into our own buildings. And this was really through improving space utilization within our existing footprint. We continue to maintain our facilities to ensure an ongoing commitment to higher ed and plan to continue our ongoing collaboration with the Chinatown community. Next slide. The P12 project, so Tufts University and Tufts Medical Center are each a 50% stakeholder in an entity called Tufts Shared Services. This provides services to both units such as parking, printing. Tufts Shared Services is in a development partnership with Millennium Partners, the Asian Community
Corporation and Cochrane Jennison. And this team was designated as the developer of the P12 site in December of 2018. Out of the 369 square feet program, the TSS portion really equates to only about 264 parking spaces out of the entire development. Next slide. Switching gears to the SMFA campus, as mentioned previously, the buildings and property are leased from the museum. The leases from the museum have 12-year lease terms with options to extend. We have the building labeled 1 is about 100,000 gross square feet and located in the Fenway, and the building labeled number 2 to the plan south is at 160 St. Alphonsus, and that is in the Mission Hill neighborhood. While the SMFA is new to Tufts, it has been operating in both of these buildings as an art school in Boston for several years. Next slide. Since we acquired the leases on these buildings, the university has renovated the atrium to address code compliance issues, as well as create a new cafe on the street level at 230 the Fenway, which is open to the public. Next slide. Similar to our health science campus, Tufts is working to improve space utilization within our existing buildings and maintain our facilities. One thing that we would like to do is strengthen our campus identity through a signage and art program at both of the buildings. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, we are very proud of the strong community partnerships we've formed in the city. In the 2019 Tufts University Community Benefit Reports that was provided to the City of Boston, we outlined more than $12 million of benefits the university provides to city residents. Some of these benefits include our dental clinics that provide services that are more affordable than traditional private practices, our free dental outreach programs that often take place at community gatherings and in Boston Public Schools, tutoring programs, free nutritional education, and STEM education. Next slide. Additionally, we have a community grants program for local nonprofits. We sponsor several nonprofits a year with unrestricted donations and provide free use of our facilities to several of our community partners for their events, courses, and presentations. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out to our neighbors to let them know about our programs, benefits, and events that are open to the public, and we regularly attend community meetings to make sure we maintain an open line of communication. Next slide. Finally, I'd like to highlight the 2 green spaces that I mentioned earlier. We maintain a beautiful and relaxing green space on Harrison Ave in Chinatown. The space is opened up daily to the community during the week. Several local daycares and youth programs use the space quite often. It has been closed during the pandemic, but we look forward to opening it for the community use once again in the coming weeks. In our second space, in 2013, the MFA entered into an agreement with the City of Boston that they would assist with the landscaping inside the gated area at Calumet Square. That is a benefit that we've actually taken over from the MFA and plan to continue. We've begun spring planting, and these photos show what it looks like, I think, as of yesterday. We plan to add flowers in the next couple of weeks. We service and water the square weekly, and our landscapers also do a significant amount of trash removal to keep the space looking nice for the neighborhood. Next slide. So to summarize our connection to the City of Boston, I'll return back to my opening slide, which highlights our economic impact and some of the community benefits we provide. I look forward, myself and our team that's on, to answering any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll hold the board questions and go to the public meeting, public testimony portion. So if there is anyone who would like to give testimony, please announce your name, affiliation, and your position for the proposed project.
I've unmuted Rich Giordano to testify.
Okay.
Thank you. Madam Chairwoman, members of the BPDA Board, thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Richard Giordano. I'm the Policy and Planning Director at Fenway Community Development Corporation. We'd like to go on the record in support of the part of the Tufts IMP regarding the two buildings, the one in the Fenway and the one in Mission Hill, that are the Museum School of Fine Arts. We've been given assurances, and actually I was on the task force that reviewed it and was at the facility in the Fenway, and I can comment and say that they've been taking excellent care of it. We've been told and are assured that no map amendment will be done. There's no overlay zoning. It's not a long-term lease, it's a short-term lease. The owner will continue to be the MFA. There's no question about that. And Tufts will continue to operate the art school facility. And given all of that, given how well they've been doing it in their stewardship, I can say that Fenway CDC is happy to come out in support of the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Teresa,
I've
do we have?
unmuted Adam Sarbaugh. Adam? You just self-muted yourself, Adam. Go ahead, try again. We can't hear you. I'm going to go on to Kelly Brilliant. Adam, see if you can work on your technology. Kelly, you've muted yourself. If you can unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me, Teresa?
Yes, I can, Kelly.
Okay, great. Hi, members of the board. I'm Kelly Brilliant, Executive Director of the Fenway Alliance. The School of the Museum of Fine Arts at Tufts University is a member of the Alliance, one of the 21 members, and they're a fairly new member, and I wanted to support their master plan. They really came on and jumped in as a full supportive member of the Alliance. I was very pleased because they were new to the neighborhood. They participate every year now in Opening Our Doors, which is our large cultural festival in October. They have, which is the Fenway Alliances. They participate in Fenway Porch Fest now, which is a festival of 3 community organizations: Fenway Civic, Fenway Alliance, and Fenway CDC. And they've done that for the festival, I think, is going into its 3rd year, and they've done it every year. They also, as you may know, provide community grants for over 30 organizations throughout the Boston area, small community grants. And they provided 8 this year to the in the Fenway and Mission Hill neighborhood alone to 8 different organizations in 2019. They have a cafe that's open to the public now, which is really nice, where you can grab coffee or sandwich. They have, as you know, year-round free art exhibitions open to the public. And I just want to highlight one initiative, and then I'll take my leave of you guys. They do this great studio after-school art program for Boston high school students, where each weekend they bring in students from Boston High School and to help them develop real professional artistic portfolios. And this is a great boost for students who are interested in going on to art educations in higher ed. And they've been doing that program for a year. So we really enjoyed their partnership as a community member, and we support their proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Adam, have you been able to figure out your technology issues? We can't hear you. Okay, he just put his hand down, so he must be all set. There's no other hands up right now.
Okay, great. Are there any, in addition to having people join on the web, we are also reading any emails, sorry, I lost my place, right. Read any written testimony received into the record. So Eddie, do we have anything to read into the record?
We do. I have 4 pieces of written testimony that I will read into the record. There we go. So the first piece of written testimony comes from Kenzie Bach, who is Boston City Councilor for District 8, and it reads as follows. Dear Chair Rojas and members of the board, I am writing in support of the Tufts University Institutional Master Plan Amendment and Renewal. The IMP amendment proposed seeks approval of the Institutional Master Plan Notification Form and the IMP together as the renewed IMP for a period of 4 years expiring October 20th, 2023. Specifically, the amendment includes 2 lease spaces located at 160 St. Alphonsus Street in Mission Hill and 230 the Fenway in Tufts University's IMP. Both spaces are currently utilized by the School of the Museum of Fine Arts at Tufts University for studio art programs, gallery and studio space, as well as for admin, office, and support services. Our office met with Tufts University task force members along with members of the public on March 5th at SMFA. We also participated in a meeting last December regarding various local quality of life issues around the 160 St. Alphonsus Street building, such as parking, safety, and maintenance on Allegheny Street, snow removal, etc., on which Tufts has committed to being an active partner. Members of both the Fenway and Mission Hill neighborhoods are supportive of the Tufts University Institutional Master Plan Amendment and Renewal. Initiatives such as the Tufts Community Grants Program, which provides funding to support local community organizations across Greater Boston, demonstrate a welcome commitment to our area. Although I am eager to see Tufts return to making its full requested pilot payment to the city as it had until last year. As we tackle the uncertainties of COVID-19 over the months ahead, I look forward to doing so with Tufts as a trusted partner to District 8 and the city as a whole. Sincerely, Kenzie Bach, Boston City Councilor, District 8. So the second piece of written public testimony that we have is coming from Boston City Councilor Ed Flynn, representing District 2, and it reads as follows. Dear Director Golden, I'm writing in support of Tufts University's request for a 4-year extension of their institutional master plan. Tufts University's medical school campus is located within Chinatown, and the university has been a good partner to the Chinatown community. It has engaged with my office and residents about the master plan, and I have not encountered opposition to the extension of this master plan. Tufts University has a big presence in Chinatown and in District 2, and they have offered numerous community grants, programs, and sponsorships to the residents and organizations of Chinatown. The university has proactively engaged with the community and has been a good neighbor in Chinatown. While there are IMP amendments filed by Tufts University impacting Fenway and Mission Hill, I understand that Chinatown and District 2 will not be largely impacted by these amendments. I also understand that Tufts University has engaged stakeholders in Fenway and Mission Hill about these amendments, and that the university plans to be a good neighbor in those communities as well. I hope that Tufts University's IMP will be extended for another 4 years. Thank you for your consideration. And that is signed Ed Flynn, City Councilor for District 2. The third piece of public written testimony that I have for the record is from a private individual, and I apologize in advance for any mispronunciations. It reads as follows. As the founder and leader of Gund Kwok, Asian Women's Lion and Dragon Dance Troupe, I would like to submit a public comment on Tufts University's IMP. Gund Kwok is the US's first and only lion and dragon dance troupe that offers Asian women the opportunity to perform in art that was forbidden to women. Gund Kwok rents space at the China Trade Center. When the China Trade Center was undergoing a repainting from October 2019 to March 2020, it was a huge challenge for Gund Kwok to find affordable open space with a high ceiling in the neighborhood. However, Tufts University and Mr. Mark Maggiore were a godsend, offering Gund Kwok free space to practice, enabling us to adequately prepare for the Chinese New Year performances. Mr. Maggiore worked hard to find us classroom space even as we needed to schedule additional practice time. For a small nonprofit with little funds, the support of Tufts University allowed us to continue operating and to deliver the high quality performances that we are known for. Tufts University and Mr. Maggiore have been a generous and thoughtful community partner. And this letter is signed Reverend Chung Im Tan, founder and shifu of the Gun Kwok Asian Women's Lion and Dragon Dance Troupe. The final piece of public written testimony that I have to submit to the record is written on behalf of the Asian American Civic Association, and it reads as follows. To the Boston Planning and Development Agency, the Asian American Civic Association, or AACA, respectfully urges your board to vote favorably on the renewal of the Tufts University Institutional Master Plan. Tufts University has been an outstanding partner to AACA and the Chinatown community for years. Tufts University has long supported our multi-service center, allowing AACA to provide direct social support services to the Chinatown community. Tufts hosts our Next Steps Transitional English program, graduation celebration, twice per year, which provides our students with a special venue to celebrate their accomplishments. AACA is also currently partnering with the School of Medicine to run a workplace education program on their campus to better the lives of incumbent workers at Tufts. Plus, Tufts regularly hires AACA's ESOL and job training graduates, as well as those that walk into AACA's Employment Center, giving community members the chance at a good career and an even better future. Even during the struggles of the current pandemic, Tufts has stepped in and provided support to the community and to AACA to ensure that life continues with as much normalcy as possible. For example, Tufts is generously awarding emergency grants that are supporting our nonprofit neighbors that have been affected by COVID-19. Tufts University has been a long-running cornerstone in the Chinatown community. AACA wholeheartedly supports the renewal of Tufts University's institutional master plan. Thank you for your consideration. And it is signed Mary Chin, Executive Director of AACA. So that is the final piece of written testimony that we have for the record.
Okay. Thank you, Eddie. And Teresa, do we have any other testimonies?
No, we do not.
Okay, great. Any questions from the board? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Okay, and the chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. Congratulations and thank you, Tufts, for all that you do for our city. Okay, so that concludes all the agenda items, with the exception of the final one, director's update. So Director Golden, what is yours? Can't hear you. You're muted, yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the members, good evening. I want to start this evening by addressing some of the recent events that have occurred across the country and here in our own city over the past two weeks. The horrific killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis reflects deeply troubling history here in America. It's a history characterized by hatred and racism and violence. It's rooted deep in our country's past, and it continues to manifest itself today through systemic racism. George Floyd was laid to rest earlier this week in Houston. I, like many, grieve and pray for his family and for all of the families of victims of senseless acts of violence. But millions of people across the country did make and continue to make their voices heard about how injustice and racism must end. I personally am listening and learning. We all are. I'm committed to this fight. I'm having these conversations in my personal life, in my professional life, conversations that the likes of which I have not participated in you know, a life that has been lived almost entirely here in Boston. And I'm having these conversations with the young people in my life, principally my 5 children, including, astoundingly to me, a 4-year-old who is absorbing this, attempting to process it, figure out what's going on. My 4-year-old, who just graduated from preschool, brought this up with me while she was coloring with chalk on the driveway a few days ago. These are really tough questions for everybody, regardless of age, but it's important that we all discuss racism honestly, and it's the only way we'll ultimately make progress as a society. By understanding the pain that racism continues to inflict, and by truly empathizing with those who experience great injustice, we can respond constructively. I take the responsibility of moving forward very seriously, both in my own life and as the director of the Boston Planning and Development Agency. As this agency plans and guides inclusive growth for our city, the BPDA has a unique opportunity to create a more equitable city for all, especially Boston's Black communities and communities of color. BPDA staff spend every day engaging with community members about how our neighborhoods can offer opportunity for all. Over the past several years, the BPDA has made significant progress transforming into a community-led, planning-first agency that engages with all and supports growth that reflects the needs of every neighborhood. So today, the BPDA uses Imagine Boston 2030, which this board adopted in 2018, as a framework to support equity by creating affordable housing, good jobs, and open space in every neighborhood. We leverage funding from large real estate development to support workforce development and training. We also embrace equitable procurement policies, and we require diversity criteria for developing publicly owned land, innovations that have occurred on this board's watch in recent years. Our mission every day is to create a more equitable city for all. No matter the department or division within the agency, the work that our staff does helps us fulfill this mission. And I'm very proud of the hard work that our staff does, either in City Hall, at their remote workstations, given the current public health crisis that continues to permeate life in Boston and throughout the nation. And we look forward to that same deeply committed work occurring back in our neighborhoods, face to face with the people we serve once the public health crisis abates. I want to share a few steps that the agency has taken and will take to address and promote diversity, equity, and inclusion both internally here at the agency and externally in the neighborhoods. Since December 2018, the BPDA has partnered closely with YW Boston, a consultancy which helps organizations create the necessary cultural shift to support inclusive policies and practices. We've offered agency-wide diversity and inclusion training and created a customized and measurable action plan to address diversity, hiring, retention, promotion, and training practices throughout the BPDA. By participating in this program, this agency hopes to break down barriers with staff by building trust and understanding needed to hold open discussions about race and drive organizational change, both now and in the future. We're also working to ensure that the procurement opportunities offered by the work and through the work of this agency are fair and inclusive. That was mentioned a bit today during our budget conversation. But the BPDA is part of the Living City Inclusive Procurement Accelerator, which is sponsored by Citibank. This accelerator seeks to learn, identify, teach, learn best practices for racial equity in procurement and increases access to government contracts for diverse businesses. We're also actively participating in the City of Boston's disparity study to get accountable data for BPDA specific sectors in order to create the necessary policies and actions for improvement. We also require diversity and equity criteria for redevelopment of publicly owned land. This policy was adopted in 2018. At that time, the board adopted language to support wealth creation in marginalized populations by incentivizing developers to partner with minority and women business enterprises, including finding creative ways to build capacity in smaller firms. Developers for public land are evaluated on the comprehensiveness of the proponent's diversity and inclusion plan for creating increased opportunities for people of color and minority and women businesses who seek to participate in the development of publicly owned land. We've also improved marketing and advertising policies for leased space owned by the agency. We have instituted a policy to market vacancies to minority and women business enterprises prior to advertising in more broadly based real estate industry publications. We're doing this in order to increase opportunities for minority and women businesses so that they can access BPDA-owned commercial leases. For all procurements and disposition RFPs, the BPDA invests in advertising and translation beyond the legally required postings. We go beyond the legal minimum in order to advertise in neighborhood and/or multilingual publications. We're also partnering with local organizations to enhance our mission and our commitment to equity. The BPDA, for instance, is beginning right now a partnership with the Builders of Color Coalition, a group that convenes over 500 real estate professionals of color in Greater Boston's building sector for the purpose of mutual professional development and access to development opportunities. So toward this end, we have made a commitment recently to financially sponsor these activities conducted by the BCC in the coming fiscal year. We've also begun to participate as a staff in these activities and in these conversations. Last week, our Director of Real Estate, Devin Quirk, participated in a very robust discussion virtually representing the BRA, the BPDA, on a panel conversation on the subject of public land disposition. So we are investing in the work of the Builders of Color Coalition. We seek to do the same wherever possible. Earlier today, the board authorized the agency to hire a Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This individual will be responsible for strategy development and oversight of the agency's racial equity and diversity policies. This professional will focus on establishing collaborative partnerships with internal and external stakeholders and help foster a more inclusive, equitable, welcoming, and diverse agency. And through the agency's fiscal year 2021 budget, we are also creating an equity and inclusion fund, a dedicated revenue stream, all of within the budget. This will fund the activities directly related to addressing equity and inclusion in the BPDA's work, both internally and externally. I really encourage when we put out, we are going to make available the link to the job description. We've spent a lot of time identifying the function that this new role will provide. It is very robust, and we're really expecting a lot out of the individual who is ultimately hired to fill the position, and we're really confident that this role can help the organization continue to accelerate the pace of change both within the organization and in our neighborhoods. So I look forward to growing our team to better focus on the work we do every day to build a BPDA that supports equitable and inclusive growth throughout our city. So finally, just a quick word on working from home. Long and short, we continue to work from home, but the vast majority of the agency is working remotely in response to the public health crisis. Today's board meeting was the third board meeting that we held virtually in response to the public health guidance in the city and the state. We're doing this, of course, to protect members of the public, BPDA staff, BPDA board members in light of the public health emergency. The items on the agenda this afternoon, this evening, did not require a public process, or they did require a public process that has been completed prior to the final step at tonight's board. So suspension of in-person public meetings occurred after our March proceeding, and one day we look forward to the return of in-person hearings, but we're grateful that the participation of the interested public, the staff here at the agency, and the board are able to make this work so that we can continue to have meaningful conversations and input into our processes virtually. So we've been working from home since March 17th of this year. I remain committed to communicating with our 240 member staff regularly. We had our 12th weekly all staff call in which we have virtually the entire organization participate virtually. Those occur we've done it every week for 12 weeks, almost every time on a Thursday afternoon. I think only once we deviated. So we are trying to routinize the communication virtually so that all staff members can stay connected to what's going on with the agency, what's going on at City Hall, and that we can share our successes and our challenges and engage in a dialogue through these staff calls. So I just want to thank all of our staff. I want to thank the public who continue to work with us to offer meaningful voices and participation in our processes. And I thank the members of the board for the positive vote on our budget earlier in today's proceeding. Again, we don't know what the future holds with regard to the economy and the public health crisis. We think that the budget we've adopted allows us to continue to do the mission people of Boston expect of us. And I thank you for the positive vote, and I wish you well until we see each other again, likely virtually next month. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Director Golden. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay, take a roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Sure.
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Okay, and the chair votes aye. Motion passes, meeting adjourned. Thank you all for participating. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you next month. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.